We're going to call our meeting to order. It's Wednesday, May 16th, and this is the recess session of the Nags Board of Commissioners. Our first item is the adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Our next item is audience response.
Good evening. My name is Gary Oliver. I own the Outer Banks Fishing Pier. I'm here to talk about fishing piers tonight. For over 50 years, the piers have played an important part of the communities on the coast. There used to be 33, we're down to 18. We knew that when Jeanette's Pier was being built, that we were in trouble here, especially me. I'm only 2 miles down the road. And there were a lot of assurances made and promises made that they weren't going to hurt us, that they were going to charge more than we did. And we expected that to happen. But the day they opened the doors, they broke the promise. The first day, they decided not to charge sightseeing fees. Now, I don't know what the difference is between the aquariums and the zoo. I mean, they were built by taxpayers also. But the fact is, more than half the people who go to Jeanette's Pier are not from North Carolina. They're from other parts of the country. I'd say in the summertime, 75% probably are out of state. And it's just unfair for the piers to be picked out like that. It's awful. I heard your meeting last time, and I appreciate all your support. And I understand you've got a resolution. I hope you pass it. I think I was at the board meeting, or the advisory committee meeting last time that they had it. I saw Anna there, and Bob Mueller invited me. And it was about time that we were included in a meeting like that, since we've been affected by the pier from the very beginning. I was kind of surprised that at the meeting itself, it brought up a lot of things that I questioned. A lot of people on the board didn't even realize, or on the committee didn't even realize, that they don't charge sales tax at Jeanette's for anything. And that, of course, is a disadvantage to us, because everything we charge, we have to charge sales tax. They don't charge it, they don't pay it. The other thing that I'd noticed, when Anna gave her reports, they never gave the amount the store was taking in, how much they sold on T-shirts and stuff. And I don't know what they based. I heard that the pier lost money, but I just recently heard the other day that they took in over $800,000 in the store. Now, how could that pier lose money when they took in well over $1.5 million? I question the timing of and the Aquarium Society has taken over since then. I question the timing. Why didn't they release this sooner? I know Bob Mueller said he'd asked for 3 meetings before that and was not given it. So I think there are a lot of questions to ask about the pier, but I do appreciate your support and the chance to talk to you all, and hopefully everything will be okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. We will keep working on it, I know. Other public comment tonight?
Good evening, Mayor Oakes and Board of Commissioners. I'm before you tonight in my role as your police chief, but also be introducing, I think everybody knows Kim Murray on the Outer Banks of the Outer Banks Public Safety Auxiliary. But just for a minute, if I could just give a little preview. May 15th, 2009, the men and women of the Nags Police Department and all town employees lost a friend and co-worker in Sergeant Earl Murray. Since Earl's death, he has been honored in many ways. The town of Nags Head dedicated its West Side multi-use path in his name. We've also changed the Employee of the Year for the town of Nags Head, which is awarded by you, to the Sergeant Earl Murray Employee of the Year Award. Another way Earl has been remembered, and one of the reasons I'm before you tonight, is the establishment of the Outer Banks Public Safety Auxiliary. The Outer Banks Public Safety Auxiliary was established after Earl's death with hopes of bringing the members of the public safety community closer together, while honoring and remembering them and hosting yearly events. The most recent action taken by the Outer Banks Public Safety Auxiliary is to award a quarterly law enforcement officer award for their dedication and work to the citizens and visitors of Dare County. Since Earl worked for the town of Nags Head, we've been asked, the Nags Head Police Department and the town of Nags Head has been asked to present this first award to one of our officers. Met with the other supervisors and the officers of the Nags Head Police Department, and I'm proud to nominate Police Officer First Class Jonathan Gilreath for this first time award. I'll ask John to come forward, if he would. Before Ms. Murray gives the award to Jonathan, I'd like to say just a little bit about Jonathan. He's been with us for 5 years and has grown in many ways during that time. In the past 2 years, he has become one of our leading officers in self-initiated activities, specifically DWI arrest and traffic enforcement. This, coupled with his experience and job dedication, makes him an informal leader among his peers. He also continually strives to improve his education and training to enhance his job skills and knowledge. John has always demonstrated a strong desire to protect victims of domestic violence and has taken special interest in these types of incidents. John has also demonstrated that he can react well under stressful situations, which was recently demonstrated during his handling of an incident involving a suicidal subject on a traffic stop. All of these attributes speak volumes about John's dedication to his profession and to the well-being of the public. Above all, his positive attitude is a contributing factor in bringing about a positive image to himself, the Nags Head Police Department, and his profession. So I'm proud to nominate to the Outer Banks Public Safety Auxiliary Jonathan Gilreath for this award. John is gathered here tonight with his wife, Laura Gilreath. She's out there. His mother, Betty, has joined us. His son, Hampton, which is out there. His daughter, Riley, is here. And also representing the Public Safety Auxiliary is Amanda Allen, here in the black, and Becca Cook. That they are here in support of the Outer Banks Public Safety Auxiliary. So without that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. On behalf of the Outer Banks Public Safety, I'm a little emotional because yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of Earl's death. So, I wanted it to go to Nags Head first because it is where Earl worked. And the whole idea of forming this was every day that y'all put on uniforms, you go out, you answer calls, you never know what you're going to be faced with. As a wife, you never know if your husband or your spouse is coming home. Unfortunately, my husband didn't make it home, but he died doing what he loved to do. So, as president of Outer Banks Public Safety, I would like to award you the first Sergeant Earl Murray Outstanding Officer Award.
John, congratulations. I know the board joins me in congratulating you on this honor. It's one of a kind. Is there any other public comment this evening? Hearing none, we're going to close our public comment. And our next item is items referred to in presentations from the town attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to inform the board and the public that yesterday the North Carolina Court of Appeals issued an opinion in the Fisher lawsuit. You may recall that the trial court had granted a motion for judgment on the pleadings dismissing that case back in April of last year, and the plaintiffs had appealed from that decision. Yesterday, the Court of Appeals entered a decision affirming and upholding the dismissal of that lawsuit in a published decision, which means it's a precedent. And there's a couple of important features of this case, one of which is the court, of course, it found that the notice that was provided by the town to all the folks who needed to provide easements, that notice was adequate under the terms of the statute. The court also found that the town had express authority to condemn the easement area, or the easements that it needed in the project area. And interestingly found that the town's determination that no compensation was due for the taking, that was a reasonable determination, not that it's binding, but that the town's decision about that and saying so in the notice was adequate, and that gave an owner all the notice that they needed of what the town's position was. The court also indicated, kind of interestingly, that it may be that the value of properties would be increased by the beach nourishment project, and that increase in property values may constitute compensation in and of itself that would alleviate the town having to pay compensation to folks. So that was an interesting holding. There's no other cases that have held something like that before. So in any event, it's an important decision. It's a good decision. We're glad to see that the Court of Appeals finally has resolved that particular issue in that particular case for the town. Other than that, I would like to discuss in closed session with the board at the appropriate time the Sansoda litigation and briefly discuss the Cherry litigation.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Manager?
Bert is going to pass out to you the manager's recommended budget. Okay. Presented for you tonight for your consideration is the manager's recommended budget for the fiscal year July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2013. The budget has been prepared in accordance with the North Carolina Local Government Fiscal Control Act as required by the North Carolina General Statute, Chapter 159.11. The budget maintains the current tax rate of 0.1775 cents townwide with an additional 0.16 cents within the Beach Nourishment Municipal Service District per $100 property valuation. This tax rate continues the 0.02 rate townwide and 0.16 cents within the Municipal Service District for the second year of a 5-year plan to offset the pledge of the town's occupancy tax revenue to pay for the 5-year debt service on the issuance of $18 million special obligation bond for the beach nourishment project that started in this month a year ago. The budget also maintains current water rates. I'm going to go through, I've got some slides that I want to present to hit the highlights. We'll start with recommended budget is $16 million. Whoops, sorry. $16,817,348. This is an increase of just over $1 million from last fiscal year. The reason that is if you look at the interfund amount, and that's the amount that's saved for future beach nourishment bond debt, that transfer to the interfund is $635,000. The true expenditure increase is just under $400,000. And if you'll go to that one handout, this will give you a snapshot of the overall budgets and the line items in each of the departments. And this also is in the recommended budget. You'll see that interfund amount that I'm talking about there is that increase is because of the transfer to the capital reserve fund for use in subsequent years for beach nourishment or bond debt repayment. So that's the increase there. You can go through and see some of the other changes. You've got those there. You'll see town manager, the increase there is almost exclusively because of some staffing changes that I'll discuss shortly. There's some debt in IT, the increase there or items that were purchased last year that aren't needed this year. An increase in legal. Public Works admin is a decrease because of, again, staffing that I'll describe. Animal control, we're not suggesting there that we do away completely with the animal control program. However, I have proposed that that animal control line item be part of the overall police budget. So that is part of the increase in police. Can we go back to those slides? The staff request was $575,000 more than what's recommended. Wanted to give you a picture of the other towns and their tax rates. This takes into account the present fiscal year tax rate and give you an idea of where we stand and where we rank versus the other towns. Even with our increase last year with the 2 cents for the beach nourishment, we're right in the middle of the other Dare County municipalities. The goals that I've used in going forward, we've talked at your board retreat about looking forward for performance-based budgeting. The department head submitted their budgets with some of your goals that you described at your board retreat. They began to put together their budgets to illustrate and show you how the individual departments are going to meet some of those goals. But the keys, again, are to ensure that the town survives the economic downturn in a good financial position. I think we've made some cuts where we've needed to, frozen some positions where we needed to, and this board has saw this economic downturn coming in some slides I'll show you here soon. You'll see where it really hit in 08 and 09. So I'm standing before you to thank you for your oversight and wisdom and to thank the staff for realizing the downturn that we are in. Ensure that town service levels and service quality do not suffer as a result of budget issues, and I think we've done that. Minimize the need for additional funding necessary to provide the same level of service. Begin to refocus on efforts to fund the town's capital improvement program. Throughout this budget or economic downturn, we've talked about the cost of deferral, we've talked about the cost of delaying things, and the board has picked up a renewed emphasis as much as you can with money being what it is on the capital improvement program. Okay. 1 cent increase townwide generates $308,162. That's at a collection rate of 99%. That's what this budget is based on right now. I feel pretty confident that we'll get to 99.5. We're a little bit higher than 99% now. 1 cent increase in municipal service district generates $98,130. Again, that's at a 99% collection. You'll see at the top the increase. This is we're in an envious position for most municipalities and resented by most of the other towns in Dare County because of the increase of share that we're getting as a result of the need to fund the revenue for the beach nourishment. That we've talked about this. If all things stay the same and there's no effect on the other towns and their raising of property taxes, that increased share is scheduled to expire in 5 years. What I've recommended for use in the general fund that will make up that $1.5 million is in capital and one-time costs, $294,000. General statutes require that the tax that's generated in the municipal service district, it has to stay, the increased share as a result of the tax increase in the municipal service district has to stay in that district. So that amounts to $527,000. Got $210,000 in staffing changes. I have proposed a 2% COLA at $106,000. A one-time pay for performance in lieu of merit. This would not affect subsequent years' salaries, but it would be a one-time pay. And then the remainder to balance the general fund at $350,000 in lieu of use of fund balance. The tax base for fiscal year 13 is just over $3 billion. If you take the tax rate at an increase of 100%, a 2 cent townwide, I'm sorry, we're not changing the rate for the beach nourishment. The same for the municipal service district. The 1 cent townwide increase at 100% generates $311,000 and $99,000 in the municipal service district. Our general fund levy townwide, $5.4 million in the municipal service district. We're taxing on $1,766,000 for a total of $7.2 million. To let you know, the 2% COLA for all employees in general fund is $106,000, and the pay for performance $36,000. Some general fund capital outlay items. One of those cost needs for deferral, we are adding more multi-use path. We have been limping along with some of the equipment. We need to replace those with a mower that we've proposed here. We've got a dump truck in the budget that came on the job the same day that Ralph Burrell did. Ralph has outlasted that dump truck, but we need to replace that dump truck. Replace a roll-off truck. These are all financed. Replacing a police vehicle for use as in CID. Replacing an ATV for a more utility vehicle that can be used throughout town at a cost of $14,000. Replacing 2 air packs in fire rescue at $13,000. An ocean rescue truck at $12,000. And then some other large expenses that we have included in phase 5 of the multi-use path that would be $100,000 with our share, $84,000 if a Dare County Tourist Bureau grant was received. Got $6,000 for a match for a pedestrian path plan, and then $45,000 for a phase 1 update to the town ordinances. Again, something that came out of your board retreat was the need to revisit the code and making sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and that we just make sure that it's where it needs to be. This next slide will show you where the dollar's going. 28% combined in police and fire, 24% for the debt for beach nourishment, 21% for public works, 19% general government, and then 8% miscellaneous. This gives you kind of the general overall look at where the money's going. Revenues, ad valorem tax increase, including the MSD, is up slightly at $17,196. Tax base increased at just less than 1%, and a decrease in back taxes of $2,500. I'm going to try and illustrate on these next slides about the other taxes. Again, you'll see such a dramatic increase because of the way the shares are distributed throughout the county. It's based on an ad valorem tax, the levies, and that's what's collected, so that's why you'll see the increase in those revenues. Unrestricted, intergovernmental, including occupancy, land transfer, sales, utility franchise, and other revenues at $5,336,000. Restricted intergovernmental at $2.7 million, including POW bill, the public education funds, the Channel 2019 funds, contributions from Dare County, and the MSD portion of sales, occupancy, and land transfer taxes. Interest income is budgeted at $5,000 less than it was last year, 0.08% based on the current rate. Where the money comes from. 43% of our budget comes from revenues generated from taxes placed on the individual property owners. Sales tax at 16%, occupancy at 15%, interfund at 14%, and 12% others. That gives you an idea of where the revenue is generated from. Occupancy tax revenue, it'll show you a downward trend from 11 to 12, and then up dramatically because of the increase in share. We estimate that this would be up slightly without the increased share revenue, but the other two would be remaining somewhat flat. And land transfer, the next slide would, percent increase would be flat, maybe up a little, but again, the share shows a dramatic increase. And the occupancy tax and land transfer, the total percent of the share 2012, the total percent of that was distributed. We were at 25% in years past, which has remained pretty much steady. But this year, again, it's up because of the increased share in 2013. Sales tax we're projecting it to be up this year over subsequent years, but again, we would project, taking out, again, the shared revenue, that it would remain virtually flat. And again, the sales tax, our share of that total went from just under 0.5% to 9.14% projected for 2013. Positions. Well, over the course of the last 4 budget years, economic times have forced us to look at our organization's efficiency. In an effort to combat revenue loss, we have frozen positions, restructured employee benefits, and asked employees to do more with less. This year, careful consideration has been given to the organizational structure and efficiency of the town. As a result of this review, and in an effort to meet the changing needs of the organization, you will find a request to fund a facilities maintenance technician, a fire marshal / deputy chief, and a project manager / town engineer. I'm also recommending that the board continue to give further consideration to unfreezing the police lieutenant position. And there is funding available for all of these positions. Health changes and wellness changes, no changes in benefits for our health. Wellness changes, employees this is something the board put in place for this fiscal year, that employees that chose not to participate in the town's wellness program would pay a higher premium than those that are participating, and this is recommended to continue in subsequent budget years. Retirement contribution decreased. Health insurance increased at 4%. Last year we had an increase of 5%. The original projection of what we were told from the League of Municipalities is that we would see just over a 6% increase, but because of the effectiveness of our wellness program, we received a 2% reduction. I'm very pleased and proud of our employees for the efforts that they've made. Not only, initially when we did this, I think we were concentrating on the need to save the town money, that it shouldn't cost the town citizens extra money for employees that chose not to take care of themselves. But because of the efforts of our wellness committee, I think employees are starting to see this as a benefit for themselves more so than for the town, and it really has paid off for us. No change in the law enforcement separation allowance. I look back to fiscal year 11, property and liability was at about $130,000. It has gone up, increase of $20,000 or just over 11%, based on the issues that we're dealing with centered around the public trust. I'm surprised it's not more. I'm somewhat pleased by that. And the workman's compensation was a slight decrease of just 2.5%. The contributions that I've recommended to community groups are essentially the same as they have been the last couple of budget years. $3,000 to the community care clinic, $3,000 to interfaith community outreach, $10,000 to the Nature Conservancy, $4,000 to the Outer Banks YMCA, $100 to the League of Women Voters. Bike and Build is a new request, newly funded at $500. Undesignated dropped from $2,000 to $500 for those, any worthy cause that you may be presented with throughout the fiscal year. Fund balance. I'm going to try and spend a little bit of time here. The fund balance, 2012 fund balance is estimated to decrease by just over $1 million. In 2012, unrestricted and undesignated fund balance is estimated to be at 38% due to a decrease in fund balance with projected use and increased expenditures by adding the bond debt. Adding the bond debt, we have to include that. It's just over $4 million, the debt we're carrying on the beach nourishment. We have to include that as an expenditure, so it kind of deflates the percentage of fund balance. Without that, we'd be looking at about 51% fund balance that we'd end fiscal year 12 with. The projected fund balance use for this fiscal year, being at the $1.1 million figure you see there, is primarily because of prior year's capital purchases not completed from the prior fiscal year that carry over, and current year projects funded with fund balance, including the Wellbone Park project and Phase 4 of the multi-use path, and then an increased use of contingency for legal fees. At fiscal year in June 3012, fund balance as a percent of expenditures, again, is projected at 38%, and that's down from 71% when we didn't have that additional $4 million at the last fiscal year in 11. Due to the anticipated use of fund balance in the current fiscal year and the increase in expenditures from the cost of bond debt repayment at just over $4 million. The next slide will show, this needs to be corrected in their packets, is that right? If your slide's there, if you'll note that this will show in from 08 to 09, and then we were putting money in the bank. And about 08, 09 is when the economy turned, probably in 08. But because we saw it coming, we actually, in a tough economic time, were actually able to almost break even in 2010. But we've steadily increased the use of fund balance. This is why I'm concerned about continuing to fund the budget with fund balance, and that's why I'm recommending that we use that increased share. Now, I know that increased share isn't going to be there forever. I know that we're not going to have that additional $1.5 or $1 million to be able to in lieu of using fund balance. But for fear of showing that if we were to use fund balance again to fill the gap, that number for the second year in a row would be up around that $1.1 million. We'll go to the water fund. Recommended water fund this year is $2.7 million. It's $50 million more than the fiscal year current 2012. Requested was $162,000 less than recommended, and I have a feeling I might be one of the only managers that stands here and says I'm projecting that we spend more money than the department head suggests. But that's because we've added the water line project from North Ridge to Villa Dunes, and also we had omitted the insurance for property liability and workman's comp, so that is the reason for that increase there. We have no recommended rate increase, no changes in other fees, and the 2% pay adjustment equals $13,000 in the water fund. Some of the capital outlay projects in water, continuing to try and work on those THMs in South Nags Head, adding a $50,000 mixer for the South Nags Head water tank, $2,900 for some replacement lab analysis. There's the $100,000 for the water line from North Ridge to Villa Dunes. And if you notice, the South Nags Head water tank is in need of repainting, and that's in maintenance and repair at $96,000. In the water fund, where the money goes, 59% to water operations, 16% to interfund and contingency, 15% to water distribution, and 10% to other departments. Again, just to show the same, this is identical to the general fund, and the retirement contribution has gone down slightly, and the health insurance increase up at 4%. Operating revenue is up slightly at 1.8%. Budgeted income from retained earnings, we're budgeting $243,874. We are budgeting $2,000 in interest income. We'll probably be doing better if those water employees were picking up bottles, but it's budgeted at 0.08%. Where the money comes from, you'll see there at the very end, you can cut that dollar, the investment's at 0%, cut that off and you still got a whole dollar. I think you could spend that one, but that's just a sign of the times. 90% of the money comes from utility charges, 9% in retained earnings, and 1% in miscellaneous. Future budget considerations. We got revaluation next year, and that's gonna be tough. That's going to be a tough thing to go through. I want to continue to look. The department heads have tried to make a renewed emphasis on training We've got the extension of the West Side multi-use path to consider continuing funding for a capital improvement program, and continue to be concerned about the delaying of the equipment replacement. We've talked about this in some of your previous budget workshops, is the need to maintain what we presently have. We've got to make sure we've got that, we're taking care of what we have. And then I'd like at some point to be able to consider increasing again the 401k contribution. Budget calendar, I would ask the board to set a public hearing for Wednesday, June 6th, a time-specific public hearing, and then ask that the budget be adopted at the mid-month Wednesday, June 20th meeting, 7 o'clock, not 7:30. And we've got asked the board to set some budget workshops as your schedules allow. I do want to thank the board for your patience in this process. I want to thank the department heads, Kim Kinney for doing another outstanding job, Benita Hurl, Human Resources Director, Elizabeth Teague, who's been a part of this process, and Roberta, mostly for her patience in dealing with me and getting this packet, this PowerPoint and the board notebook put together, the budget notebook put together. So thank you.
Well done. Any questions for Cliff? Not substantial questions. I think we've all got a lot to digest and take home and read. Budget workshops. For some reason,
There's one next week.
I had one set for next week at 2 o'clock. Is that correct? Wednesday at 2 o'clock?
I will not
Still
make
suit-
that one, unfortunately.
Is there a different time or day that?
No, I have to be out of town that day.
And then proposals for future workshop. Do we need another workshop after that, or do you want to set that at that point in time? Go through that one and then see where we are?
So we know how to mark our calendars.
You want to set another one and then we can cancel it?
Probably easier to do it that way.
Yeah. Let's see if he's gonna have, when is he gonna have the,
June 10th to June 18th, I'm out of town.
Cliff, what was the date you're going to have, the 2 dates you showed up there?
June 6th for the
So-
public
2 o'clock
hearing.
as well.
Okay, so we have to have one before June 6th. I mean,
Yes, ma'am. Well, I guess you don't technically have to,
But
because that'll
it
give
would
the
be
citizens
better.
time to give them their input.
The 23rd that we've already got scheduled, and then the 30th. Does that suit everybody? It's another Wednesday.
it's not for me.
We got to get you one of the days.
Wednesdays are just bad.
Wednesdays are
Anyway.
bad days. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I
what's,
got to do Tuesday or Monday or Thursday even. You pick Wednesday.
Thursday, May the 31st. Is that?
In the afternoon?
Does that work?
That'll really work for me. Thank you, Bob.
2 o'clock?
Mhm.
Okay.
Almost Carolyn reminds me.
Don't worry, we know to call. she calls me and then she calls you. Okay. So we've got one set for Wednesday, the 23rd at 2 o'clock, and then Thursday, May the 31st at 2 o'clock as well. Yeah, good with everybody? Okay. See, Cliff, and you had made the request for a closed session.
Yes, sir,
for
to discuss
acquisition?
property acquisition of the Dowdy's, the former Dowdy's Amusement Park on 158, as well as the Fin and Feather property on the Causeway of 158.
Board of Commissioners agenda. Commissioner Kuhn, would you like to lead us off?
I believe the clerk sent out an email today that the governor sent out letters requesting nominations for CRC. And I believe, if I'm correct, we're only allowed to make nominate for one position. There's about 7 or 8 vacancies. But my recommendation would be that the board consider nominating Jerry Old from Currituck County, who sits as well in a local government seat. There's very few of us from the northern part of the state up there on that board, and he does a good job. He shares our values when it comes to beach nourishment and terminal goings and so forth, and I would suggest that this board recommend Jerry Old be reappointed.
Is that, what particular slot is that? Is that out lower?
That's a local government seat. He was a former Currituck County Commissioner, so he qualifies for the local government. There's 2 local government seats. I sit in one, and he currently sits in the other. So if our board would agree to nominate him, that would be my recommendation.
Comments, questions?
No, nobody has an issue with it. I move that we nominate him for the position.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion?
Thank you all very much for the support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. We will nominate Mr. Wood.
I'm still after the terminal goings. He's an advocate.
He's an advocate. That's why I said he's an advocate. The only other thing I would like to is also request at a proper time, a closed session to consider the acquisition of real property and to identify it. It's the Dawsey Pruden Ayers property located just north of an easement, just north of the post office. There's an easement between the property and the post office. So I'd like us to take a look at that, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Sutton?
The only thing I want to say is Roberta and I, on early Sunday morning, Mother's Day, 8 o'clock, Forest Street Beach Access, saw the Bike and Bill group off again as they dipped their wheels in the Atlantic Ocean and took off to San Diego, California. It will take them 70 days. And during that ride, they will actually bring awareness to the housing shortage and the affordability of a home. They're great. Well, there you go, Roberta. There's your picture.
Why didn't you dip your feet in there, Ann?
Do I?
Why didn't you dip your feet in there too?
My feet were on dry land, and they wanted to be in the water. What a great group of kids every year. They just make your heart feel good. This year there were only 19. We usually have about 30. And they come from Michigan and New Mexico and New Jersey. They're from all over the country. And I don't know if you've ever gone into bikeandbuild.org, but it tells you the history and what they do. And they have to raise something like, is it $4,500, Roberta? They work and earn this money, and they have to not only become financially able, but they have to really become physically fit to make this journey. It's wonderful. It's also, we learned this year that it's very dangerous. They had 2 of the bikers last year, not the ones that started from here, but I think they had started from Boston because they started different times of the summer. They had 2 bikers who were killed. So it's an inspiration for the youth of our country, what they do. That's all I have.
Thank you for getting up so early on Mother's Day.
It was my pleasure.
Mr. Walters? Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't know everything, Mayor.
Gosh.
I don't have anything to report to it. No.
I've got only one item.
I mean, the reason why I say that, Mayor, is we did have a Channel 20, I keep saying Channel 20, a Gulf Ed meeting, but there's nothing.
I've got just one item, and that's a resolution in support of a sightseeing fee at Jeanette's Pier. And this is a resolution that was passed to us by Bob Muller. And I believe you're intimately familiar with this one. Yes.
More intimately than maybe I would like to be. It's a short resolution that Bob did send the mayor. Gary spoke to it earlier. It says to, where is Dare, and by the way, this is being presented to the Dare County Board of Commissioners this Monday. Is it this coming Monday? I believe it's this coming Monday, the 3rd. Okay. Whereas Dare County supported and participated in the acquisition of Jeanette's Pier with assurances from the state of North Carolina that the pier would operate in a fair and competitive manner as regards fees and services. And whereas the state of North Carolina has declined to levy a fee for sightseeing on Jeanette's Pier in spite of the impact on private piers and repeated requests from Jeanette's Pier Advisory Committee. And whereas revenue from a sightseeing fee would contribute significantly to the operating revenues of Jeanette's Pier. Therefore, be it resolved that the Nags Head Board of Commissioners joins the request from the Jeanette's Pier Advisory Committee that the North Carolina General Assembly honor the commitments made to the local community that supported the acquisition of Jeanette's Pier by adopting legislation establishing a fee for sightseeing on Jeanette's Pier that is competitive with fees at private piers and that will generate substantial revenues to support pier operations. The fee that the advisory committee did approve among the members was a $3 walk-on fee. So that is it, and I would like for you to find out if we support this.
Yes, ma'am. Any questions, comments? Second. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution. Second. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. The motion passes unanimously. This is the right fix for it, is going to the legislature.
Well, it is, and again, I'm not really sure on the figures for Jeanette's Pier, but at one time we did figure that at that point in time, if there had been a $2 fee charge for this past year, that they would have had an additional $140,000 in income versus what they had in donations. So, and I'll have to get Bob Mueller to let us know to whom, unless he let you know, to whom to send this other than our legislators.
We can figure that one.
Figure that
We'll send
one
it to the leadership and to our representatives, I think, and that should be sufficient.
Okay.
Let's see, other business? I'll entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of an update on existing and pending litigation, GS 143-318.11A3.
That's to discuss the Sansota, the Cherry, and the Fisher litigation.
Yes, sir. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
What do you say?
And then, and to consider acquisition of property and in accordance with GS 143-318.11A5, and that 3 pieces of property, the Dowdy Amusement Park tract, the Dawson Pruden heirs, Fletcher heirs, Dawson Pruden's lots, and we had another note from the Finn Feather Fund. So I'll entertain that motion if somebody will.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. We're going to go to a brief closed session. We're going to come back into open session. I'll ask our attorney, John Lighty, to report out from our closed session.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the board did discuss the 3 litigation matters that they went into closed session to discuss, and did give instructions to the town attorney with respect to the Sansota litigation. The board also discussed the 3 different pieces of property that it went into closed session to discuss, but no other actions were taken.
Thank you very much. No further business come before us. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. We're adjourned.